Oh, don't choke as you start, but Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room. With me today, Lewis hosting it, Willem with me, Kev with me. Great to have you both here with me today because we've got plenty to discuss. Before we do that, though, if you're new around here, you've got to go click like and subscribe. If you're watching over on Twitter, you have to head over to YouTube if you want to get involved with the comments. And yeah, just get involved. We've got plenty to speak about. We'll start off with you, Willem. How are you doing? You're good?
Yeah, all good. A bit lost a bit of liquid over the day today, but for the rest, all good.
You want to give some context as to what you mean by you've lost a lot of liquid
Yeah,
today?
so
That could be a lot of different things.
I donated some blood at work, and I'm a bit woozy, but that's it for the rest. I'm all good. Still made it.
Is that to fund the FSG pot? Get us some good players. You're selling it off.
I have no idea if my blood is worth any money, but if it does help to the fund, I'll gladly let them take it.
I mean, Kev, how are you doing? You're good?
I'm all good, mate. I'm not a superhero that doesn't wear a cape like William, but yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm living the dream, as I say. My daughter's going to Taylor Swift on Friday, so she's made up about that. So yeah, so I've got that to look forward to. I'm not actually going. My wife's going with her, but yeah. Well, you got to do these things. Also, it's Father's Day on Sunday, so I'm hoping for a boss present. So, that's, I'm trying to put one and one together. I'll come up with 5, by the way, so it's all right. How are you anyway, Luke?
The concert. I'm, you know what? I'm good. I'm actually really, really good. I've tried to redo all this a little bit today with my girlfriend, so it's been quite happy with it, looking really good at the minute. So yeah, I'm all good, and I'll be even better if we sign Edison, because that's the first thing I'm going to speak about. Like I said, there's a billion things to talk about. Let us know in the comments what you think of this. Edison, Atalanta midfielder, we all know him, central defensive midfielder, 24 years old, is heavily linked with a lot of clubs around Europe. There's been reports of, I think it was Real Madrid were interested, but they're interested in everyone apparently. Arsenal at one point, and now it's come back to Liverpool. The reports being that he said he's interested in the Premier League, but he can't confirm nor deny what's going on for his future. He said entirely into the hands of Atalanta, whether or not he stays or goes. And yeah, he's just keeping his options open. So, I mean, Willem, we'll start with you. What do you make of Edison as a player, just in general, just as a bit of a baseline?
Well, from the few targets that are out there, like for us to look at in the DM position, he is definitely in one of the top 2-3 positions of players from that position that I was looking at, and I would be very happy with him as a signing. If we get him on a good deal, I don't think this should be one necessarily where we do an overpay as well, but more purely that's more purely to do with the fact that there is no world-class DM right there out now. So if you're going to bag on someone getting the potential to become possibly world-class, like an Edison, or like another player like an Ugarte who hasn't gone through the best time in PSG right now, but still has a lot of potential, then obviously those are players that definitely are there for the liking. I think he's a really good player. So yeah, I hope the comments lead to a little bit more, hopefully.
I mean, I'd like to think so, because he is like top quality player. We saw exactly what he did when we played Atalanta. Just before we get into that, I can only assume this was for Kev. I'm not going to lie to you, but yeah, 1999. Thank you very much. But yeah, I don't. You know what, Kev? No one makes as much money on this. I don't even think the people who own the channel make as much money as you do when you're on these things. It's
you need to start selling invoices, Kev.
Nah, I'm definitely not good, but thanks, Jen. It means a lot, honestly, to the channel. It means a lot.
But yeah, I mean, Edison, in fact, we saw exactly what he did when he played us. Paul said he's not a CDM, he's more an 8. No need to sign someone for the sake of signing someone. So I have a few stats that I'm going to get into in a bit. But Kev, I want to get your thoughts on it. What do you make of the potential of signing Edison as a player whose valuation is estimated to be between, I think it's 38 to 50 million pounds, which is dirt cheap for someone of that age in that position?
No, it is. And as you quite rightly said, Lou, the way he played against us, especially at Anfield, and how compact that Gasperini had his players played for Atlanta play against us, bodes well. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like a position where we predominantly want to buy someone more so than what we have with Endo at the minute, although Endo over the season proved himself, but he's just a stopgap for someone who's actually a little bit younger and a little bit more dynamic and has more legs. So, he has it in his locker to be a defensive midfielder. Don't get me wrong, he has played centre mid. So, there is an opportunity of him playing in a pivot, possibly with Trent, maybe with McAllister. So it gives us plenty of options. He's versatile within the midfield. He can play attacker midfield, Brazilian. So, it all bodes well. If we get him, I'll be made up with him. But the problem you've got with Atalanta players is that they all are notoriously known as Gasparino's fool's gold, in the fact that when they go to other clubs, they don't prove to be as good as what they have been at Atalanta. So that can take with a pinch of salt. I think if you give this player time and time to move into the Premier League, you'll probably see how good he really is, and it'll hopefully be a step forward for him. But no, I'd be quite happy if we bring him in. But we are in that silly season though, Lou, where we're linked with everyone, and he's one of a numerous of names. And as I've said recently, there's people in the chat that may not like the fact that we're linked with an Edison, and why are we spending that? But and they'll have the favourites, but there's plenty to choose from. And as I say, we can only go from what his comments are, and he's intrigued by the Premier League, and that bodes well. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully we are in the race for him.
I mean, well, how many times did we see it last season? Like Caicedo and Lavia, and we end up with Endo, who, no disrespect to Endo, he's been fantastic at points, but this could just be, like you said, just silly season. Paul says, saw Edison playing for Brazil last week. He's not a 6. We can't sign someone because of one game against us. 2 games, just to be a bit of a dweeb there. But yeah, I mean, I get that. And to be fair, there is an argument to say that we haven't seen enough of him per se to actually justify spending a lot of money on him. But at the same time, so we're looking at a player who, he might not be an out-and-out number 6 per se at the moment. He averages 6.56 progressive passes. He's a very forward-minded player, but defensively, across the big 5 leagues in Europe and the Champions League and the Europa League, Conference League, etc., per 90 minutes, he's averaging 2.47 tackles, which is in the top 77% of all those leagues and competitions. 1.4 interceptions, which is the top 85% for that metric. So there's defensive, the numbers are backing up that he's a solid defensive-minded player. Like, he might not be an out-and-out number 6 at the moment, but Willem, in Arne Slot's system where he likes his players to be box to box, surely there's an argument to be made that we want one of the number 6s in the double pivot to be defense minded, but also capable of getting the ball forward, and then maybe having someone next to him, like I don't know, just someone else who can just defensively operate against the back line. Like, does it make sense to have someone who's maybe not just an out and out defender in this instance?
Well, I mean, if you even look at from the few games of Atalanta that I have seen him play and stuff and everything, he doesn't have an out and out destroyer next to him. He is technically the destroyer in that team, whilst also providing a lot of the offensive parts from the midfield from that game. I know seeing from the comments, it's not Paul's favorite player, but I'll give a bit of a devil's advocate on it as well. Paul, one game for Brazil last week is also just one game. So it does also, at the end of the day, I don't think any of us can really truly say that we've watched a lot of him anyways. But I do think just from the overall research and from seeing from the other options out there, I think he's a lot more of an attractive option. And yeah, the fact that he can actually fulfill those roles and actually also progress the ball really well, play those forward passes, he has that attacking skill set to go along with it, actually shows that he can obviously bring a lot to the game, especially in a double pivot for us, because along with the fact that even if instead of playing maybe necessarily an Endo alongside him in a double pivot, or you'd end up playing a McAllister, but you'd actually almost either in both ways, because Edison also, from what he provides attackingly, can also make sure that Maka actually just doubles down a little bit more, focuses on his defensive side, and he has to worry a little bit less about also making that progression every time because he's got Edison going next to him. So I think it would be a really good addition to our squad, to be fair.
Yeah, and like I completely understand the arguments to be made that he's not the perfect out and out number 6. he's saying Salvador Edison's not in the same league as Rice or Caicedo. Few are in the same league as Rice. You're looking at like the likes of Rodri. And to be fair, Declan Rice hasn't particularly been a number 6 this season. He's actually been playing further up the pitch as more of a number 8. So I can understand both arguments, and I'm not trying to be the whole, he's the perfect player, because he probably isn't. And I'm a big advocate, and Kev, I want to get your thoughts on this, that the number 6 should just be an out-and-out destroyer. If he's good on the ball, perfect, but their main priority should be to protect the back line. So I might be being a bit of a hypocrite by saying that Edison interests me, despite the fact that he's not that type of player. But what do you personally look for in your number 6? Do you want someone who's just the out-and-out brick wall in front of the back four, or do you want someone who's going to be able to operate in a sort of attack-minded approach, perhaps more than your average number 6 would?
I think what we're looking for in a number 6, and what I've been the same. I've been like the likes of a Mascherano, the likes of a Xabi Alonso, the likes of a Mohamed Sissoko, those kind of destroying players. But I think the way the game's gone now, I think I'm starting to change my mind as to what my number 6 should be and what it looks like. For me, I think we're seeing now, like we've saw with McAllister, who's played there, and I get the fact that he's not a number 6, but you're now putting technical players who've got the actual skill to move the ball progressively forward into that number 6. So your number 6 is not only a destroyer, but is also versatile and has got that forward-minded thinking to pass the balls through and give it to the players that need to be on the ball. That's the way I think we are going to be going. And the number 6 that everyone's probably as a stereotype of buying, I don't think necessarily that will be the case. I think you're looking at someone who's a bit more, who has got the skill, has got that kind of progressiveness in them, and as well as being a destroyer, they are also versatile and moving forward, but are dynamic as well in the fact that they've got the engine to do that, so they can go from an 8 to a 6 to a 6 to an 8, and conversely do that across the midfield. That's probably something that we may be looking at, because if you look at Slot, he likes to see his players to be versatile in a numerous of ways, and you should be able to, especially when you're when you're pushing forward and you're pressing the team in, eventually your then defensive midfielder may be a little bit forward more than usual, so you're getting them to be more progressive with the ball. So they've got to be good with the ball around the feet and be able to be tactically able to move it. That's the way I think elementally we're going. That's me personally. If we're looking for a defensive midfielder who's probably quality, you're probably looking at João Neves, but you're looking at a release clause of about 100 million, and someone who's not actually used to the Premier League as well. So and he's smaller than what Edison is. I think he's only 5'7". I think he is. But you only have to say, you only have to. Sorry.
I didn't look on it this morning. That's why.
It's lost blood, but you can still remember that. Like, bloody hell.
And that's the way we're moving with this. I think we need to get out of this mindset that a stereotype of a certain player within a position is necessarily what we're looking for. We're probably looking for someone who's a bit more versatile and can do more than the job of just being a defensive destroyer. You have to be able, especially in the Premier League, and how quick it is. You find your players are out of position majority of the time, and you've got to be able to adapt. And I think that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at those players that progressively can play a 10, an 8, and a 6. Now, that's probably something humanly impossible, but that's the kind of makeshift templates of what you want. You want someone who's got the physicality to deal with the 6, the progressiveness to play as an 8, and also have the creative mind of being a number 10. And that's very hard and very difficult to do, because there won't be that many out there. But I guarantee that the likes of a Michael Edwards with the data in front of him will be able to find someone that will conjure up that, and it'll be not necessarily the ones that we're looking at, and it'll be a curveball like he always does, and shows us why he's Yoda when it comes to these kind of positions. But it's difficult at the minute, but that's the way I see it anyway.
Because I think that's perfect. Like, the prime example of that is the fact that when Jurgen Klopp came in, he wanted Julian Brandt, and then he got told, no, Mo Salah instead. And, look what's happened. And Healer says here, like, Slot's still on holiday in Ibiza, and we're speculating on transfers before he arrives and has a single day in the job. He's going to have input on who he wants. But Michael Edwards and Julian Ward, like, make no mistake, they're probably going to be running the show from a data analytical point. And Edison fits the bill. He's a not cheap option per se, but compared to, like you said, Jan Neves, who's going to be excess of probably like 80 million, around 50 million pounds for a 24-year-old Italian midfielder who's played in an Atalanta team where pressing is so important. It makes such sense for FSG and Michael Edwards and Julian Ward, Rich Hughes to all possibly invest in this player. And like you said there, the number 6 role is not the defined role it used to be. Rodri, for example, is defensively near perfect, but he still comes up with goals. He still has one of the highest pass completion rates of anyone in the league. So you probably are right. And there's validity in both sides that the number 6 should be an out and out destroyer, and the number 6 should be someone who can progress play. Now, Willem, I mean, like we touched on the double pivot before, and Paul makes an interesting point actually saying Trent's partner in the double pivot should be Endo, Badge, and Maka until we identify a proper 6. Now, we've gone round the world discussing how many times, Trent should go into midfield, who's going to be in the double pivot, who's going to be this, who's going to be president in 30 years, blah, blah, blah. But who should be the 2 in that double pivot? And you have the option of, do we sign Edison for that? Do we move Trent into midfield? What is the way to get this double pivot, if we do play that way, moving forward?
I kind of get stuck in between it still half of the time, because obviously the one issue that you do get with moving Trent to a double pivot is actually more that we actually even have less options for our midfield players, which we do actually have quite a few of now, compared to what we used to have a season and a half to 2 seasons ago, at least, to actually properly compete for the positions. And I'm in between. I think it will do me some good that the Euros are on right now, and at least Southgate is actually like gonna try the experiment himself first, so we can kind of take bits and pieces out of it, and kind of get more to a definitive conclusion. I've always said with Trent, I feel like his defensive work comes down to a motivation issue, not necessarily an ability issue, where I think he is more motivated to play in midfield. So maybe you see less defensive issues going through it. Then again, I think I haven't seen the game back, but from what I've heard, his positioning for the Iceland goal in the friendly that they lost against England was apparently quite appalling as well. But I don't know it because I haven't seen the goal. I haven't seen the game. I haven't seen anything. I'm not a massive international football watcher, to be honest. So I just don't really watch any of it back. But I do think it's an intriguing point. I would more be almost inclined to say I think we can keep Trent at right back if we get more of a destroyer profile in a double pivot on the right-hand side, because it would give the option of keeping McAllister in that left-hand side of the double pivot, and it would also give us the option to actually play a proper number 10 in front of it while still getting Trent's creativity going down the right-hand wing, or right-hand side, sorry, not right-hand wing. So I'm kind of really torn in between it. And then we got Bradley still as well. Like, the thing is, like, it's when the summer period comes through, you forget injuries exist. So you look at all these players as well, and you're like, wow, we've got a really good squad. We've got really a load of depth. And then you forget about 4 weeks into it that about 5 players have fallen out already again.
And I've got no issue with Trent going into midfield. I think he offers something from right back that no one else can. I think Bradley is very good at putting balls into the box, but I just think Trent in that position is like, he's not the greatest defensively, but what he offers going forward, in a sense, can make up for it. And like you touched on there, we need someone on that right-hand side to cover back and help defend, like Wijnaldum used to when Trent does venture forward. So in an ideal world, I suppose it is more, you do need that just out-and-out defence-minded player when you've got Trent operating further forwards, put balls into other people. Healer says, in a not-so-perfect world, you have to do your best with what you got. Liverpool's late for the party after almost teams been in the buffet, number 6 around the world. We came up short. Now, Kev, I want to get your thoughts on this, because that end line really touches me a bit in the sense of, did we come up short? Like, if you look at last summer, for example, Caicedo would have cost us 100-something million pounds, which, would have had a detrimental effect going into this summer because we might have been paying that off. Lavia was cheap and cheerful to an extent, but he's so injury prone, as we've seen. Andre was probably the only one who was a real viable option, but he seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth. So, in a sense, if we can get someone this season, did we really come up short last year with getting the number 6?
Oh, I'd say with hindsight, we were fortunate with how they were. However, had we kept our our, our fingers in the bucket with Casado's agents during the course of the season, Casado would have joined us, and then it's an if and but, because I think he has a different season at Liverpool than what he would have and has had at Chelsea. So we have come up short in a sense, because I think Casado was our number one choice, and the fact that we went through all our eggs allegedly in one basket, and we didn't get him, and then we've surprisingly go out and get a 30-year-old from from the German league, proves the fact that the money was there to be spent. And I think at the end of the day, when you look at it, Casado was the one that we wanted. Lavia was just another option. Andre was never going to come because of the Copa delivered the Torres, and the fact that he got them to the final, were on the way to the final, and there was no way that they were going to let him go before then. So the only option that left you with is that he was going to only come in January. We started going to Lavia, and then we found out that Chelsea were in for him. So at some point, I just think we just didn't want him and just wanted to keep putting the price up so that Chelsea had to pay it. And then that forces their hand, and they won't go in for Casado. But they end up with both. Now, Lavia's been, that's one that we very much missed and made up we did. Casado one still, it gets me a bit, because I think Casado could have done a very good job for us last season, and especially in the number 6, especially when we were crying out for him. And I just hope that kind of money's available again this year. Not necessarily for that position, but that money's still in the pot, and we can use it and utilize it going forward. But for me, I do think we did come up short, and it proved it with who we brought in, who ended up having a good season. It seems as though I'm having a go at Endo, but I'm not. I think when he first came in, I think a lot of us weren't happy with the fact that we'd gone from Casado at 100 million, and we're now in the bargain basket trying to buy a player just to fill a spot for us. Gladly, it worked out well, and it benefited us. And he apart from the first couple of games, give him a consistent run. He showed how good he was. Shame he's on the latter end, coming to the latter end of his career rather than in the middle. But that being said, I think Casado was the one we wanted, and we did come up short with that. But it's intriguing, though. I know Paul's in the comments saying I don't agree with that. I like to know who Paul wants in the number 6 for next season. It'll be intriguing to see what he wants.
Well, if he says anyone who's an out-and-out destroyer, there's going to be words, because we've had debates on this, me and Paul, and we differ very much on this. But we love you, Paul. But no, I agree with that. And the thing you said there that touched me the most, I keep saying touched me the most. The thing in there that rang the most with me is when you said, I'm not having a go at Endo. And that was I've said it on so many different platforms to so many different people when I've said, I think Endo needs to be sold if we have a number 6 target, because it's no disrespect to Endo, but his valuation is only going to go down. He's been a sort of a stopgap CDM. He's done fine. He's not set the world on fire, but he's not exactly been dreadful. He's not the solution, and we are very much, as you touched on there, we need to sell to buy. And there's players in this squad, and one who we're going to get to in a moment, actually, who we could look at, like your Simicast, your Endo, players like this who we need to raise funds. You've got to consider moving them on. And Endo, just to me, makes the most sense as someone who's only going to decrease in value. He's in his 30s now. He's not the perfect solution. He's a solid squad player. But at this point, we have too many squad players. And if any of them could go out of McAllister, Elliott, Jones, I think Endo's just bottom of the pile. But it's no disrespect to him. It's just the way that I'm feeling about it. Paul says Matt's Weaver. I've got no issue with Weaver. Willem, I'll get your quick thoughts on Weaver. Would you have him at the club just before we move on to the next topic?
He's a good player. I don't, from someone who's watched final quite a bit actually over last year, it doesn't excite me either, to be fair. I think because it was his first proper breakout season as well, so I'm always very iffy with with players who have a first good season, because obviously you never know what really shows up in the next
and
season.
the injury as well.
The injury as well. I mean, the injury at this point with injuries, to be fair, as long as they're not frequent, and he's just got a big one now, it happens. It's part of the game. You know, not everyone's going to get through a whole season unscathed, and it just happens. And you know, I think we also it's something I genuinely tell my friends sometimes. I think also we've been spoiled in the last 15 years with Messi and Ronaldo, who were never injured and were always playing at the top of the level. And I think some people forget that, and they kind of just keep sticking to the fact that no, these are the absolute two best, which they are, because they're probably the all-time great two best, because they never got injured. That was just something ridiculous that happened throughout that time. Coming back to the whole DM part though, like I do also kind of I do agree with Kev as well on the part where I do also think we did miss kind of a chance last summer already to properly address the replacing of a DM. Now I personally, especially with Fabinho moving on last summer, I've had it since Euro 2021, because it was played a year later. But I remember seeing Paulinho play that first Euros at that time, and even watching him play a couple of games at that Euros, I thought, okay, if Fab's legs go, or he wants to leave at some point, or he wants to go, that's the guy I want to get in. Because as well at that point he was still 27, 28. Obviously now he's turned 29 now recently. Now it just doesn't make sense anymore and stuff and anything. But I thought last summer, for about 55 million, you would have probably been able to get him in. And I think if we would have had him in the team last year, because then you could have just let McAllister play further up front. You could have let all the midfielders. We could have been playing in the same way that we also had Endo. We could rotate Endo a little bit more, get him into a rhythm, then get Paulinho. And Paulinho is that bit of a bigger destroyer profile than necessarily Endo is. It also gives that versatility to play around with it. So it would have also given that flexibility into it. And also coming back to your Endo point, for me necessarily, even if we get a DM in, I don't think in the short term that we need to move on Endo. I would say more, it actually gives us more of a chance to also maybe consider loaning out Bajcetic for a season. Because as much as we all love Bajcetic and we all think he has massive potential, it is all still a lot of potential, and he does need to go through a phase of development. And also with the fact that we're being linked to a 6 now, and we've already got Endo, and we've got a lot of midfielders, I don't think it would even be that bad for him as well to have that season out on loan. It gives us also an option to kind of decide what we're going to do with players like Tyler Morton, because at some point as well, we don't want to end up with a Sepp van der Berg situation now for every player that goes out on a couple of loans, where they get fed up of it, they go and have a public outrage, and now we're kind of left in a situation where the club value him a lot higher than the player thinks they will get for it, and now we just don't know what's going to happen. So I think also
Shea Ojo was one of them. He went on a billion loans, and then he just went for chips. So
yeah, no, literally. And I mean, I think we've got another kid who went out on like 5-6 loans in a row, Arroyo, isn't it? And he's now come back into the squad after like 5 years of just being on the bounce the entire time.
Something like that, because I know Tyler Morton's been on a few. Sepp van der Berg's one you touched on. Has Billy Kumethio, has he been on a couple loans, or am I making that up?
Like, been on a few.
Yeah, so I agree with the Bajcetic point. And to be fair, I said he does need the loan, Bajcetic, to sort of, because you can't expect him to come straight into this squad. Like, it's just not going to happen after the injury he had, the growth he's had. Like, there's no chance he's ready to just take over as much as people would like to think he is. So, a Genie type number 6 is definitely a welcome choice, but to be honest, I'd rather us not sign any midfielder now. Let Slot use the available midfielders first. Jones is very good out of possession stuff. He's also neat and tidy with the ball. And this was the thing that I said on the Attack and Football podcast. I said the most important thing for Arne Slot to do is to work out who he wants in his squad, then sign people. So, you know, it's an interesting point, to be fair, but we spoke about how we have to sell to buy. It's always been that way. Coutinho, Suarez, etc., etc. Joe Gomez is the one being linked with a move away. We all know Joe Gomez is the longest-serving member of the squad, signed from Charlton Athletic in 2015, 2016, something along those lines. It's a terrific player last season, arguably our best left back at points last season. It's up for debate. He's covered in right back, centre back, CDM at one point. He's now being linked with Vincent Kompanys Bayern Munich. The reports are that Vincent Kompanys sees him as a very viable option given his versatility. He targets Gomez, who's 27, as part of their rebuild, and the newly appointed manager is attracted to the versatile ace who has won back his England spot for Euro 2024. Now, Kev, I want to get your thoughts first and then yours, Willem, just on Joe Gomez. Not so much is selling him the right thing to do, but just how do you think he did last season? Is he do you rate him as a player, or do you think it's sort of been he can be a bit underwhelming at points?
I think a lot of fans will be different to what I think. I think he was integral for us last season. His versatility and the fact that he can play all across the back four. Don't get me wrong. There are times where his concentration span is a lot to be desired. And I get the fact that now and again he does get himself into a little bit of trouble with that concentration. That being said, you've got a player who undoubtedly will play anywhere and does as good. If he done that well last season, that he made the left back he was the second choice left back. And that's ahead of Tsimikas. Now, don't get me wrong, Tsimikas, I'm not his biggest fan. Up until the injury against Arsenal, he was doing all right because he had a flow of games. After that, we hardly saw him because of how good Gomez was. And that for me shows you what he is and what he can be. I think at times last season, I thought we could have used him a little bit more as centre back, more than what we did, especially when Matip was injured. But then you look at what Kwanzaa did, and he came in and done a really good job. But he would have went up the notch for me as the other centre back for me. He's good. He's a boss player. You look at the season we win the league. Him and Van Dijk have the highest points as a centre-back partnership that our club has seen. I think it was something ridiculous, like 2.55 points when they played together. It's a shame that he then gets injured, and it's the injuries that have succumbed to him that I feel sorry for, because his career would have been as virtually alongside Virgil for all that time. But he's a fantastic player, and he's one that I wouldn't be taking for 10 or 15 million for. If you want him and he's integral as to what company said, then you've got to pay the 50-60 million pound mark for me to take him out off our hands. And that's because of the versatility he brings. You've got a player who can actually, as a squad player, is better than most squad players who are sitting on the bench, who can come in and do a job for you in every position in the back, and could possibly do a job for you in midfield if he's asked to. And when you can't ask more than that. He's got pace, he's got the physicality. It's just the elements of concentration span that lets him down now and again. But other than that, quality player. And he was up there to be player of the season for me last season for how well he played.
Yeah, and he's a very selfless player as well, in the sense of he just doesn't matter where he gets put, he'll do a job for you. And Willem, I want to get your thoughts on Gomez as well, and also want to throw this consideration at you as well. Gomez, like Kev said there, if you want him, 50-60 million is around the mark. Has his valuation increased now that he's made his way back into the England squad? Do you know how for the past year or two, there's always been players sort of in and around? Lewis Dunk's going to the Euros. He was sort of creeping his way in. Cons is another. Gomez has just gone straight into the squad. No messing around. Not many warm-ups. So is his valuation going to increase a bit from that as well? The fact that he's made that squad for the Germany Euros?
I actually don't think that necessarily will have too much influence on his valuation. I think the work he put in through last season, especially playing as a left back, from predominantly playing centre back and right back. And to be honest, when he plays left back, he actually really provides a lot more to it. Often when he plays right back, it's like, it's not to say in an overly blunt way, but often when it would be that Gomez would have to play as a right back in between, I'd get a bit depressed because I'd be like, oh, we're not going to have anything bombing down attacking wise from the right hand side, and if we do, it's going to be one good cross out of 50, which it was often the case with him, unfortunately. And I've definitely in the few seasons before last season, I've definitely had my issues with it, especially like Kev said as well, with how sometimes he just has that lapse in concentration, and he seems to just like disconnect from the world for about 5 seconds, and then he's back into it again. And those things frustrated me incredibly, of course. But for the work, I think for the versatility he put in last season, personally, I hope to God we don't ever see him play as a 6 again. That's the only thing as well. I wasn't a big fan of it, but I thought, I think we've got better options. Let's just leave it at that. But no, he has been fantastic for us, and I think the fact now as well that he's been here for so long, he is now actually becoming one of the veterans in our squad who's been at the club the longest time, and I think that also just does bring a lot of value. I mean, we always talked about it before, how the value of having a Henderson around, the value of having a Milner around, who are these professionals who've been in the game for a long time.
Adrian as well.
Adrian, yes, of course. But yeah, no, like I think it's important to have around. Now, obviously, he's not unsellable. I think we'd be silly not to start considering an offer for 55, 60 million for him at the same time with the age he's at as well. Or at least look into it and see what we can do replacement wise, and see what we can do out of good business wise out of it. But I personally would I'd rather sell some other players than Joe Gomez right now on it, just for what he offers us at the moment.
What's his strongest position?
At the moment, for me, it's left back actually, because I still, from even the season before last season when he's played centre back along with Van Dijk, I sometimes still was not a fan of some of his actions there. And for me, honestly, where I've just seen him play his best football has been left back. So for me right now, that is his best position.
Yeah, Kev, do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, you can say that, but there's part of me that would like to have seen him play more minutes as centre back last season than what he did. But I can't argue with what Williams said about it, because he did play his best at left back. So, you know, and it proved how good he was. He was second choice to Robbo. That says it all for me. So,
well, there was a point where, to be fair, I was pushing for him to start, because when he came in at left back, I thought he was better than Robertson for last season at points. Like, he was outstanding. And I'll put this question to you, Kev. Is the fact that Gomez is so versatile a detriment for him in a sense? Like, you touched on centre-back before, that he can there's a lapse in concentration, there is nervous points when he does play in the middle, but is that because he's been so relied on to cover a multitude of different positions that he's never really settled to a particular position and he's to?
I think there's an element to that. I think the injuries haven't helped either, and coming at integral times in his career. Because I think that centre-back partnership would have been, definitely is, for the taking alongside Virgil van Dijk. The problem is with being versatile, and we've seen in the past, you look at the likes of Jamie Carragher and players like that who are that versatile, they're the most ones who are more vulnerable to be sold at the end of the day, because there's not actually a position laid down for them. I don't, and it hurts me that, because I think you do need that element of versatility, especially in the back four, especially the way we're progressing and the way we're trying to play. And you know, it's another gegenpressing version that we're looking to hit and to get. But within that, you do need your squad players, and that's and that kind of slip from first 11 to a squad player has to be as close to you possibly can. And that's where I think the elements of having a Gomez on that bench just builds that up a little bit more. That elevates your squad players a little bit more. And it's hard to replace someone who can sit on a bench, not necessarily get the games that he deserves to get, and then come in and do a job, which is what he has done. So there's an element of that wants me to keep him and hold them, because those players are very hard to get, and especially with the way our injuries have been over the last couple of seasons, it's important that we keep some of these versatile players. And I understand that, you know, people go, yeah, well, we'll get this amount of money for them and we can move on. Yeah, but you don't know what you're getting then. Are you going to put that into a Premier League centre-back who's going to come in, who will want to be playing every week in, week out? Or do you keep with Gomez, who's quite happy at the minute? There's nothing from his side of his camp to say, yeah, I'm intrigued to go to play abroad or anything like that. So, keep him happy, keep him at the club. He can play, to have a player that can play across the whole of the back four and is good in every time he plays that. I'd love to have one of those players when I'm playing Football Manager. Do you know what I mean? Because you've got to have those kind of players. To have that gives you a degree of looking at other areas that need more necessary work that we need to do to upgrade it up to
Milner.
a decent level. Yeah, exactly.
Milner, for example. Yeah.
Exactly, and you need those players as well to come in and have a bit of game management as well. But again, that's all part of what Gomez brings, and that's why I think the value is going up. And I agree with Lou. It's not necessarily down to him going to the Euros. It's down to the fact of what he done last season and how he's come back from injury and made that back four, especially left back, to do what he done last season is just phenomenal for him. And I made up for him as well because I think he deserves it. I think, the only thing I don't like about it is that every time he gets near the box, everyone's asking him to shoot. But, take that aside. It's for me, I'd be happy to keep him because that utility, it's a dying art, and to have someone who can do it across the whole of the back four, especially in a full season where you're playing Champions League, so you're not going to have that time to, like we did last season, and given the fringe players more time and game time in Europe. You're not going to be able to do that this season, so it's having those utility players, especially now going forward for me. So it'll be a lot. It'll take a lot to take him off us.
Can I bring a quick update, by the way, as well? Because I just checked on my phone, and technically, as he's being linked to Bayern, but Bayern just signed the Japanese centre back from Stuttgart. So I think that might be the end of the Joe Gomez stories now.
It depends what position, because like we've just touched on his versatility. Kimmich is apparently meant to be leaving. Might need a right back. Might need something along those lines. So.
No, that is also fair enough, to be fair. But I thought I would just mention it. They have already signed a centre back. Just literally now, they've activated his release clause, apparently. So I just saw it on my phone.
Right, okay. Our reporter on the scene, Willem. Thank you so much. Back to you.
The microphone doesn't help at all.
I was going to say that's. Jamie, I'm going to put this one on the screen because, to be fair, we were going to talk about Frimpong at some point, but I don't know about you. I'm sick to death of talking about Frimpong. I just think he comes up in every conversation. If I ask what we're having for tea, he comes up in that conversation. So I'm not even going to. It's just. So I will get to this question at the end from you, Jamie. We will do a little bit of the Euros, last 10 minutes or so. The viewership's probably going to go down, but it is what it is. Hila makes a good point here, saying Bayern Munich keep offing their bid for Palhinha and Fulham keep rejecting it. Now, Willem, just go back on it for like 2 seconds and give my thought on it. You did touch before that Palhinha would have been a good choice. People are still saying he might be a good choice for like 30 odd million. Fulham one, I think it's close to 65 to 70 million for a 29-year-old. That's a lot of money for someone in that position. And yeah, no,
I was going to say, like, even if we were going to sign him last summer, even for me, the maximum would have been 55 to maybe that you can get it from like 50 plus 10 in add-ons at the most when he's 28. But I wouldn't have ever gone further high than that as well, because it's just illogical. Like, the guy will now have what, three years maybe left at top level if he's lucky, and he gets away with it, maybe four.
Maybe.
But like that's too much of a risk, and you've got no resale value after it. So it needs to be a worthwhile investment if you're going to put that money in. So if they're going to up it to that, then that's just stupid from Brian. I'm not going to lie.
So anyway, moving on. I've got another question here for you, Willem, because we're doing a little bit of a Q&A bit at the end. We're linked to Frimpong. We might be getting him. Probably won't get him. He's expensive. He's a right back. He plays in Leverkusen. He's been fantastic. Anyway, Willem, going on to the next one. Would you sell Gomez for 50 million and buy Geertruida for 30 million?
No chance. No. Because I personally am not a big fan of Geertruida. From I've seen him play over the past couple of seasons now, and no. And so I think Gomez is a better player. To be fair, I just really truly think he is, and it's good that he's got the versatility style and everything, but he like he is still one of those like big stiff defenders, if you know what I mean. Like especially even in movement, like he's fast, but even when he's fast, it looks like he's stiff, and it's very hard to describe it in the way that I'm trying to describe
No, I get exactly what you mean.
But I personally, Geertruida doesn't really, it doesn't really attract me, especially not if it means getting rid of Gomez for him. So no, I wouldn't do it for that.
It's a big shout. I mean, I've already got your thoughts on Gomez, but Geertruida, a very versatile player. I can see where Willem's coming from to that extent, but is there not the argument to be made there that we're getting another versatile player who's the captain of Feyenoord, who's worked under Slot, who's got great things out of him, can score a goal, and then you've got 20 million left over to maybe invest in another part of the pitch on top of the Caicedo money from last season? Like, is there an argument to be made there?
There is, but then we only have to look 30 miles up the road at Old Toilet and see what they've done when they brought players in from Ajax for seven arc. So I don't like these links. And we had it with Klopp when he first came. All these links to Dortmund players, German players. Yep. It's not necessarily the way to go. Don't get me wrong. There may be one or two players within the final team that people will go, he's a quality player. He'll have it. But I'll be honest, those quality players will be going to Real Madrid next season. Do you know what I mean? So we can all wish and wonder what you know what I mean. So for me, I these links with not only final players but Dutch players as well, because of the links with the Dutch national squad we got with the assistant manager. It's all getting a bit too much for me, and I'll be honest. Whoever comes in won't reach or be able to get to the point of what Gomez would do if they were both to start the game at the same time. First game, bang, there'd be a big drop off to what Gomez can do on that first game. Don't get me wrong, he does have his moments, but that said, he's a quality player, and it's going to take a lot, and there's going to have to be someone of a decent player to replace him because of that versatility. Just because he's versatile for Feyenoord doesn't necessarily mean he can do it with us. You only have to look at Anthony and look at how much that's cost United over the last season, and he hasn't really hit the ground running there. And how many Dutch players have come over? There's an element of that as well, as long with Dutch managers. So it's all very well going to it's a bit like a kid with its own blanket. It just goes everywhere with it, and it feels like support and all like that. Sometimes you have to break that off, and I think that's why Edwards and the other person, Hughes as well, won't allow that unless the data's showing differently. And that's when we will go in and go, yeah, sound okay, we will, but we won't go back for going back's sake because Slot had a decent season with them last season. It'd be the same with Alonso. I think if we would have had Alonso this season, how many Bayern Leverkusen players would be coming with him? Do you know what I mean?
Frimpong.
There you go, and that's the link that I thought I was waiting for Luke to get.
It's. I mean, I don't know. We can talk about Frimpong if you want to. It's like when Mbappe was linked. It's just every day there's something about Frimpong. I mean, we can touch on it for a minute. Like, I mean, is he someone you'd be? The supposed release clause is around 40 million euros, which is brilliant. But you've also got to consider the fact that City are probably going to lose Kyle Walker this season, so they're probably going to come in with their bag loads of money. The underdog story continues. There's a lot of teams that are going to be interested in him. So, is Frimpong someone that we need to consider when we've got Trent, we've got Conor Bradley, you've got Gomez who can play as a right back, like Willem, and then Kev? I mean, what do you make of it?
I'd only consider him if we would, and this is more of the. But I think James also said it in the group, and I think that's my view on it with Frimpong. If we were to sign him, I would actually get him in as a right winger because he plays as a right wing back, but he's basically a winger for Leverkusen when he's playing at it, and it's almost the same with Holland now as well. Like Holland got a bit of they've got a bit of an issue now because they've got Dumfries who who plays very similar to Frimpong as well, prefers to be in that wing-back position, so he can mostly push up. And Frimpong does exactly the same thing, so it's a bit of a dilemma there. I think if we could bring him in as a long-term right-wing understudy and then extend Mo's period a bit longer with the club, then that would be an option to go into it. It would be a very different type of right-winger coming into it as well. But I think with the players that we currently have in the rest of our forward line, that might not actually be a bad thing, because right now we have two wingers who predominantly like to go more into the centre. And a Frimpong would be a different type of winger in that sense. He would be more tied down to the wing necessarily than purely looking to go into the box and go in for a shooting chance. He would be more someone to set up the attack. But apart from that position, if we're getting him in to be as a right back, I mean, then technically we're going to be sat here in a year's time, and then we're going to have a topic about who is not as bad as defending as the other, Trent or Frimpong, because that is going to be the eventual conversation, because both will have the same issues playing in a back four. So it doesn't make much sense to me as a defensive addition. If it were as a outlandish option for a right wing, then I could consider it and I could see it happening. But that's the only way I could see it happening.
I mean, Kev, your thoughts on that? Because that is you know what, you've made this interesting. I won't lie, that's something I didn't even really consider about him going onto the right wing, and it is an option as well. But I mean, what's your thought on it, Kev? Especially with the fact that, like Paul said, we have enough right-footed wingers. We don't need a right-footed right winger. Which, if you've got Trent who can operate on the right,
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I mean, what do you make of it?
It's going to be interesting, because if you look at the players that could actually potentially play out there already, Szoboszlai, Elliott, Salah, is that going to stop any of those players? Where are we going to be putting them players going forward if we bring a Frimpong in? Is it going to be him and Trent on that right-hand side? Is it going to be him and Elliott? Is it going to be him and Szoboszlai? Are we moving Szoboszlai to another position? Are we going to, as Hellier said, are we going to do what Leverkusen do and go with 3 centre-backs at the back and go with wing-backs? We won't know until Slot decides, right, this is what we're going to do. So, and it goes back to what you said, Lou, near the start. We're not going to be buying players until Slot's decided where he wants his starting 11 and who the starting 11 is going to be, and who's in those positions. And is that going to, if we bring in a Frimpong, all well, it's, you know, if he comes in, he's 23, is he? Then is that going to stop the likes of Endo, who's in the academy coming through? Is it going to stop any of our younger players coming through? And that's one thing I don't want us to do. I want us to have the best, but I think we need a decision as to how we're going to play, where we're going to be playing Salah, and if Salah's moving, then we go out and get the best to play in that position. And if that's Frimpong, then by all means go out and get him. But if there's someone better, I'll always want the best for replacing the best. It's a bit like having a Bentley and then replacing it with a Mini. It's just not done. You've got to replace like for like. And sadly, when you've got an asset like Salah and can do that, then you've got to buy someone who's got the potential to be that and do that. And if Frimpong, as the data will probably show or won't, then that's how we're guided. And we bring them in a bit early. If it means we've got to pay more, then we've got to pay more. But I'm not replacing someone who's playing out there already with someone who's just a Mini or an S or a Fiesta. I want the best in that position, and I don't want it harbouring or getting in the way of any players that we couldn't have, and to see it more of. You know, Szoboszlai, what are we going to do with Szoboszlai next season? Does that mean then we move into the left-hand side of the pitch and we start predominantly playing him in the way he does for Hungary? There's loads of questions around our forward attacking side as well as in the middle of the park that we need to have answers to, but we won't know that until we start seeing what Slot wants to do and where he thinks the more money and the value should be. But that it's, you know, if Frimpong's the one, then we go for him. I've always liked Dumfries. I would have loved him at Liverpool, but I think it would take away the elements of what Trent has done, and we wouldn't see him coming through, or the likes of Conor Bradley. So it's interesting, but for me, we are going to be airing on quite a lot of people, and I think this is what Liverpool. I think the Edwards likes this. Too many people, too many players. We're linked to it. Not necessarily everyone knows who we are going to go for, which then doesn't help any selling teams, because there's that many out there that are, they can't put the prices up. It's not like last season where everyone knew we were in for Casado. If you look at all the journalists now, and those in the nose are saying we're linked with everyone and everyone. And if you're Dutch, Feyenoord,
well, yeah, I mean,
Leverkusen.
Like you said before, Dortmund, when Klopp came in, it was just Geertruida, Royce, Hummels, Lewandowski, like not Lewandowski, wasn't it at the time, but like so many players like linked with us. And I think what you said there, biggest thing that's going to decide what we do with the whole team is what Slot wants in the starting 11. And I also think if Salah leaves, that will shake the whole who starts where, because they might, like Frimpong might go, we might bring him in and he might move a bit further forward. At that point, then you've got a gap. Trent might have to go into midfield and Frimpong goes right back, and then you buy a right winger. Like, we won't know anything until people have gone, until we're in. We're just going to touch on, because I did promise we'd do it, just while we've got a couple of minutes left. Jamie has said, I've been asking the panels for their Euro tournament winners, and Scotland versus Germany open pick. I know it's the Euros, I know it's not Liverpool, but it's just a quick little thing while we've got a couple of minutes left. Willem, can you give me who you think's going to win the Euros and what you predict for the Scotland-Germany opener Friday?
So for the one for the openers is probably going to be an easier one for me. My head instantly said 4-1 Germany, so I'm just going to skip that. I think Scotland will get a goal, and then Germany will be annoyed, and they'll probably smash 4 past them. That's the most Scottish way I've ever seen someone open up a tournament, score 1 goal, and then get 4 pumped in. So, and then for the winners, like, as much as I would like to say Portugal are still too suspect defensively, in my opinion, to actually be called a winner. I'm just going to have to give the most boring answer in the world, but it's going to be France. I can't see anyone else France win it.
No, I agree. Kev, who did score for the game on Friday, and then who's winning?
I say Germany win 3-0, emphatic win against Scotland. I see Germany being top. I see Italy or Spain being top of Group B. I see Denmark, possibly England as one group in as a Group C. France or Holland, Group D. I'm giving you 2. I don't care. Belgium should be group winners of Group E. Portugal, Group F. There you go.
No, who's winning the whole thing?
To win it. I think it will be either France or Germany.
Oh, come on, where's England? No, I'm joking. We're not going to win. Let's be honest.
I'm a domestic fan. I'm not an international fan. So, but I do like watching the actual the tournaments for me. I do think that Holland and Portugal do have, and even Italy, you can't write them off. Do you know what I mean? So Do you know what I mean?
Italy is the one that I have also been thinking, where I'm like, the more the closer the tournament gets, and the more I look at the Italy squad, the more I look at it like, they're just going to be the most annoying team in the world to play against throughout 120 minutes, and they'll probably steal it on penalties, because that's literally ingrained into their blood. So
I do like the Dutch. I do like the Dutch and the Portuguese.
Not the Dutch. I mean, we never win, Kev. We never win. And we never win anyway.
Here we go.
We had one golden generation in 1988, and for the rest, who won the Euros, and then for the rest, we've lost every final we've been in, and we've never been able to win anything.
What a golden era to have of Rijkaard, Gullit, and Van Basten. Come on.
Yeah, no, honestly, it would have been a disgrace if we didn't win.
This is the problem. This is the problem with the Netherlands is they've got a few players who are like out of this world, but then the other gaps of the pitch are just very average to say, like, you know what I mean? Like, you've got every. Go on, Kev.
Yeah, sorry, and they also like arguing amongst themselves. That's another thing there's another
Mm.
trait that William doesn't want to go on. But basically, they do like having an argument between themselves, and we've seen it in past tournaments, Euros and World Cups.
The best example is the quarterfinal against Argentina, where we had in the last World Cup, where Argentina did it perfectly. They just waited until every time, just piss them off, just make sure drag onto their shirt a little bit more, just like step on their toes, get them annoyed, get them riled up, and the heads go. And it happens every time. It's why like in general, when you speak to Dutch people and it's about football, they don't want to hear the words Italy, Germany, Argentina, because they're the masters of doing those kind of things, and like Dutch people just can't stand it. And then because they can't speak to in their language to the other opposition, they have to kind of do it in a bit of a broken English kind of style. What they do is they get annoyed between each other, and then they're like, so they'll just start having a go at one of their team players, and he's like, "You should step on your toe, mate, not me," and then it just all goes downhill.
I feel like that was building up for so long, that passionate rant, like that just needed to come out. I think just before we shoot, so I predict for Scotland, Germany, I'm actually going to go 2-2. I think Scotland are going to be well up for this. They're not going to do great. I think they're going to go out like fairly handy. But I think for the first game, it's their first international tournament since, I mean, how long has it been now? It's donkeys, but I think I'm expecting them to turn up for it. And to be fair, they've got some, for all that they're a bad squad, they've got decent players in there. Scott McTominay is not brilliant, but he is a bit of a workhorse for United. You've got Andrew Robertson, you've got Tierney, you've got John McGinn. You know, there is still talented players in that team. And I think for the overall way, France is just, it's the boring answer. But, you know, like Paul said, it's not coming home. I'm not getting all excited again. It's not happening. I can't go through all that nightmare again. But yeah, that's France for the winner. And that's going to be it. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. If you are new around here, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. Next time, if you want to get involved with the comments, head over to YouTube. That's where you can put all the comments in. Thank you, Jen, one more time for the super sticker. The guys really do appreciate it. Just a reminder, has been pointed out in the comments, the stream tomorrow is 7:30 p.m. UK time. So it's the same exact time as it is today. But from Friday up until the end of the Euros, they're moving half an hour earlier to sort of, you know, coincide with the fixtures. So if it starts at 7:30 in the UK, it's 7 o'clock. If it starts at 11:30 in one place, it's 11 o'clock. It's just half an hour before, but we'll keep you updated. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Thank you, Willem and Kev, for coming on, as always. And I will see you all in the next stream.